also. This is why I do it anyway for 49 days, even if they maybe have gone before. Watch your dreams. If you had a really strong connection with the person, maybe you get some signs or you feel something, or no, don't know. If someone is spending a long time dying and the condition cognitively doesn't allow conversation, what is there left to do for the spiritual caregiver to help the dying happen, to help the dying happen with less dukkha? Well, we can ask, where is the dukkha? Where is the suffering? Is it in your mind, being there, not knowing what to do? Or is it in the one who seems to be not to be cognitive anymore? We don't know. So Venerable Tekchok, some of you might know him, he had his stepmother who was in, I don't know how long, 2 years or even more, in coma, like in the old people's home. He would go there and lead the Sutra of Golden Light next to her. And so again, if you know what this kind of person was inspired by, but be careful, inspired by doesn't just mean what he or she liked. Because if you play music or things like that, that can generate a lot of attachment. As you read in the sutra, it says, you know, let go of all sense objects and all this. So something that you have confidence that it would help them, you know, over death or something like that. So that can be many things. Like also sometimes bringing you know, their animals, cats or dogs. It can be totally soothing them. It can be totally exciting them. I was once also present when somebody brought the cat. The cat was frightened, ran around. The person let herself fall out of the bed to be able to touch the cat. So it was very, very painful. So in the hospice in Land of Medicine Buddha, what they do is like more and more taking personal objects away of their environment. And of course, if they're Buddhists, then it's just one image of a Buddha. And there's maybe that goes with this, I don't know if it helps, I hope. There's about dementia, you know, what to do and this and that. It comes, yeah, right. It comes very often, so we can both answer it. I can only give you an example. Annie Ursula, who was, you might have known, tall German nun, probably the first nun, the first Westerner in Dharamsala. She could just walk in and out of the Dalai Lama's house, you know, like at the beginning, and then she was dement, and she would get lost, and we would have to bring her back to the monastery, and she was quite confused. She was always looking after stray dogs. She had a lot of stray dogs in her house. So then the message went to His Holiness. Of course, she's dying. By the way, also one can send names of deceased people to His Holiness, and he does prayers for them every day, every morning. So do I, so you can also send the names to me, but maybe His Holiness is kind of more powerful, not just maybe. But I do prayers for the deceased like every day. I have a list, and then they're there 49 days, which my dedication list is really long because there's also sick people. So to be honest, the dead people is, you know, that list doesn't get longer because after 49 days, I take them off. Whereas the sick people cannot take them off because they're still sick. Or they move to the other list, yeah. But that's quite rare, actually, that they move to the other list, the ones I have on the list for sickness. Anyway, so Annie Ursula, then the message went to His Holiness. It will be her last few days. So Nimatsam, who was looking after her, she went to with a wheelchair, with Annie Ursula kind of seeing His Holiness hugging her and all. Then back to the room, and His Holiness said, when it's the last moments, take the dogs away, because that could generate attachment, and she's reborn as a dog. Make sure she sees a Buddha image. So what happened, because I think there was also a nurse, and they can also hear, the nurses and the doctors' heartbeat and breathing, they know when it's not going to last long, more or less. So they said, then Nimatsam, turned off all the lights and had a Buddha statue in her hand and shone a flashlight on it. And Ani Ursula was pretty much already gone, but then she opened her eyes, smiled, and then died. She recognized, her dement mind recognized the Buddha image. Why? Because it was familiar. So this question is, how can we help and this and that. This is what I'm saying. I'm already training now not to do any brain exercises and this and that. And it's okay that I forget things. It's okay that I'm sitting in front of so many people, I don't know what to say anymore. It's fine. It's okay. For me. Now, for you, no, it's not fair. This is why I said I'm going to stop doing these things. And what I concentrate on is like doing tantric practices with people who want to do them, because not many people are interested and not many people do it. Not many people guide or lead these sessions, not just one session, but over a period of time. So maybe Boaz can say something about what to do to reduce the suffering of dement people, I think was.
I had something I wanted to say, but I forgot it. What does it mean? Now, I think the question I have here is about the family of the demented person, and I think it's very much like this. Sometimes we see. First of all, I have to say I do think it's a field that we have to study. I don't know. Have you seen any Buddhist text about dementia? I don't think it was so common. I think what happened is with the advance of medicine, we prolong life, and we keep the body living when the mind is already gone. So we'll see more and more of this in the coming years, And it's already one of the greatest fears of people. Many people tell me I'm not fearing death. We already said it many times. But dementia, wow, it's like the worst fear. So I think from both sides, one is what Anila said, training. If we train ourselves not to be so scared and not to talk about dementia like this is hell, then we will also influence on the surrounding, not just regarding us. It might come as something that can ease the suffering of other people seeing their loved one. I think I'm not an expert, but I think the difficult part in dementia is the first part, when you slowly, your memory, you lose your memory slowly, and for you and for your family. And again, if you don't talk about it openly, if you don't face it, it is becoming hell. If you're trying to pretend it's not happening, if the family is trying to not to embarrass you, so then of course, then it's the second arrow and the third arrow, and it's becoming much more suffering than it has to be. So it starts now with us. Most of the people in the room are already at the age that they face the fact that their memory is not as it used to be. You don't have to get to the age of 89 or I don't know what. So how do we deal with this now? This is one part of it. But the other part of it, dementia in more advanced stages, is death in many ways. The person that we knew, the person that we loved, is not with us anymore. There is someone somewhere there, sometimes like a child, sometimes more angry and not so pleasant. It's really depends on deep sankharas, deep patterns of the person. But the person that we used to have, the mother, the father, the sister, whatever, is not there, and it's many times very confusing, because on one hand we're taking care of that person, on the other hand we're grieving for them, and we're kind of not allowed to grieve because he's still there. But no, it's not really my mother anymore if this is my mother. So we just have to be aware of this. We are allowed to grieve also when the person is alive, because it's not the relationship we had. We don't have a mother taking care of us anymore. She doesn't have to be demented for that, it happens in many situations. But also the last thing I'll say, I've been quite in few situations where to me, and I don't know anything more than you, to me, it didn't seem like the demented person is suffering. It seems very in peace. I've seen other situations, but many situations it seems very in peace, in the advanced stages, not in the middle stages, Now, can we relax with that? Can we just allow them to be whoever they are now, not who they used to be, not who they were supposed to be, not what we want, not trying to drag them back to remember this, just allow them to be whoever they are. It's a kind of reincarnation, it's a kind of rebirth in the middle stage. Very different now. Maybe they're like small children, maybe they're something else, maybe they're more pleasant. There's not much we can do except accepting where they are and playing along with this. We went, one of the courses, or maybe more than one, Shutafim Lemes'a, we went to an old age house in Netanya that Miri was running, and all of us went into the Moadon, and we sat with people. And since we are not their children, and we don't know who they were, and we just came like this, most of us just started a conversation with those of them who could have a conversation. And these were wild conversation. It was amazing. I mean, the person I was talking with, every night he's walking all the way to Eilat. He has so many adventures on the way to Eilat. He has to come back before breakfast because, this nurse is really a witch, so I have to be back. And I see all these beautiful women on the way, and all these things happen. Wow, we had a wild 1 hour, Well, what does it cost me to be with him? I mean, his world is not more of a dream than my world just now, We all have our dreams. We can share it.
Yeah, maybe also just what a friend of mine did. And I thought it was really admirable. I mean, I admired that more than when she was still okay the way she did. She would go to a shop or somewhere and she would say, look, if I behave in a strange way, it's because I'm dement, and here's the number that you can phone and somebody will come and pick me up. And she would meet me and say, I know that I should know you, but I don't remember it. But it's okay, it's nice to meet. This is how she dealt with it. She's dead also now, she died. Yeah, right. So it's like she dealt with it in a really admirable way, which is more difficult than to be not dement, by the way. So like that. Can you please say about attachment in this life and in the bardo? Well, yeah, we get attached to things because we see them in a way that they don't exist, and we think that the happiness is coming from the object or from the situation, and we don't realize that it's not so, because otherwise we would always like it. This is about it. Then in the bardo, well, it's like in a dream. We have emotions and this and that. So in a dream, I cannot analyze. In my dreams, I don't have attachment. I have stress, as I told you. So I don't know. But in daily life, we are really encouraged to enjoy the things as they come, but to let them pass away when they want to pass away. Now, again, it doesn't mean you don't put any care in keeping your house up and that the things functioning, that keeping your body healthy and all this, but also knowing at one point, this house, which is already 200 years old, but in 1,000 years, I doubt that it will still be here in 2003. At one point, in German is der Zahn der Zeit. In German is the teeth of time. The teeth of time will have eaten it away, material things. No matter how much effort we put into it. And this was the first teaching of the Buddha also, and Kaundinya understood. When he held up a flower and the petals fell. And so Kaundinya became Narad, I guess, or somebody like this. I don't know if it's a very simple question, but it would have to lead a lot of time. So you cannot just say to your mind, don't be attached, don't get angry. You need to give your mind reasons. For example, to tell them attachment creates suffering. Also, we would have so much less anger if we wouldn't be attached. We're so attached to how things should be, how other people should behave, and this and that. And then when we see, no, they're not, then we get angry. Like Lama Zopa said at one point, if attachment doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry, and that's it. And he also said, this is what really went in. I said I was an alcoholic, and then I fell into food as a replacement for the alcohol. And so, it was maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was saying, if you let go of desire, freedom comes. And boom, that went right in. This is the power of a guru. You need to say one sentence, you will never forget that sentence, and it has a big effect on your mind. Then I understood the suffering of being dependent on these things. Now I'm okay. But it took many years also, not whenever I was stressed or whatever, I would go into food. So now it's like, you can give me anything. The lunch yesterday I found totally delicious because I didn't compare it with any, I did compare it with something. It was that or nothing. Then every food is delicious.
Yeah, I also found it delicious. So I like this question because I think it's important. Some people who have experienced clinical death, and I can say also NDEs, near-death experiences, are describing it with a lot of softness and love. How does it fit in with the text, with the Bardo Todol, or some of the text that we talk about that prepare us to a lot of suffering and hell and difficulties, you know? And I think it's important, you know, it's important for us, let's first talk about our own experience, to be prepared that it might not be just love and softness and be ready for that, but not to force it on our experience. Maybe our death experience will be so nice and smooth and loving, and we don't have to bring Tibetan monsters to disturb it, and we don't have to inject in fear and think. Maybe it will not be like our dreams or difficult dreams or something. So just being open, be ready. You know, we've all had dreams that were difficult, and we probably had other dreams, and this option exists and this option exists. We don't know how it's going to be, so we're kind of ready, but don't. And the same when you accompany another person, you know, sometimes we have indication. When my grandmother was, you know, dying, you could see she was struggling. She was in hell. There was no question. I mean, it was hell. Hell was the Holocaust. She was back there, although she left Poland before the Holocaust. Her younger sister, she was in charge of, they were the only one who said, remained, and she survived the whole war living in a tiny, you know, cupboard and at the neighbors until the Russian soldiers came, and when she came out running and happy, and somebody shot her and killed her that day. She survived 3 years in a cupboard. So my grandmother apparently had, you know, guilt feeling about it, which she never shared with us. But when she started coming down, she was 99 and a half. And, you know, the hold of this world was not enough to hide her from this story. She started calling her sister, talking to her in Ukrainian language. I don't know, we didn't find anyone who understood the language. And she was in hell, so we knew she needs that kind of support to kind of help her let go. I don't think we did such a great work there, basically, because they put her asleep. They put a lot of חומרי הרדמה, anesthetics. But sometimes people are peaceful. You know, Jonathan was extremely peaceful. There was no need to inject into this scene some fearful experiences. There's no, and sometimes you don't know, and you kind of open all the options, you know. So it's good to remember that it doesn't have to be frightening. The same way, it's good to remember that if you meet somebody who's grieving for a child or a loved one, he doesn't have to behave the way you expect a grieving person. Sometimes we do that to people, you know. Oh, okay, it will come to you. Oh, don't worry, you're denying it now. But it doesn't have to be in any specific way. Don't force it, you know. Somebody is grieving, but he's full of love now, and in a way he's happy for the time they had together and for the chance to say goodbye, and it doesn't fit your ideas about grief, just respect where they are, you know? You don't have to push them to fulfill your expectations.
Yeah, okay. Well, also, you know, near-death experiences, I also had other people saying horrible things. So it's not, we probably hear about when they are in the, you know, it's not the clear light yet, probably it's that white appearance. And then they feel something, and then the consciousness is still in the body. They still have their body. So we don't know. But yeah, so a number of people say if they were in this. Sometimes one person, friend of mine, or school friend, she said, I felt so good and I really didn't want to come back. And it was horrible to come back into this, because she had an accident, into this suffering body. And she also said, I understood something there, but I don't know what it was, because it's beyond concepts. You understand the nature of your mind, which cannot be described. So like that, so, yeah. So it can go all kinds of ways, and as they say, I think this every culture says that be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. And then if it's, you know, we are prepared, and when we think it's going to be nice and all this, you know, usually when Lama Zopa Rinpoche was in Tushita, and he would teach hours and hours and hours and hours, and when we had a beginner's course, I would warn the people, you know, and then if we would finish at like 1 o'clock in the morning, the next morning they would say, well, it wasn't so bad, because they were prepared that it will finish by him saying, good morning. That's how many of his teachings finished, until he had the stroke. And then people really tried to protect him, but then it was very difficult to protect him, to just go on and on and on and on. And but sometimes he would stop at midnight or something like that, most of the time. So yeah, so he was living in a different dimension, totally, you know, because usually I'm happy you don't have this thing that people get up when you or me come in. I mean, this is, I'm happy that this is not like this here, because it's okay to get up for somebody who is, you know, realized, whatever. And so we would, of course, he comes into the Gompa, everybody gets up, and then he starts, you know, he's standing, he starts talking about, can't remember what, prostrations or something. After 3 hours, when we're all standing, he looks around and says, oh, sorry, please sit down. He is in a different dimension, so.
It's not the worst. The worst was that after 5 hours that you sit there for teaching, the kids of the monastery come with the pots of hot chocolate. It's the precept day in the course, and you're craving this hot chocolate. So you get hot chocolate, but you never start drinking before your teacher. So he just finished the sentence, that's half an hour, and then somebody whispered in his ear, hot chocolate. So he said, oh, sure. And then he's blessing the hot chocolate. And by the time he finished blessing, it's a very cold hot chocolate.
Yeah. Or also, you know, he ate and he drank. He had these things to offer them to the Buddhas. So in the aeroplane, he would not touch unless the flight was really, really long, he would just offer to this Buddha, to that Buddha, to the other Buddha, and, you know, mumble, no. And so then the flight attendant will come and say, look, I'm sorry, I have to take it away because we're going to land. Roger, his attendant, would say, please, you know, can you leave it? He hasn't even touched it. Rinpoche takes the tray and says, no, it's fine, I offered it. So, you see, living with these people and being together with them and having close contact, then you understand that, wow, one can be much more than what we are now. So, like that. Okay, does rebirth necessarily mean coming back in a human body? That would be quite nice, wouldn't it? But no, it doesn't. So it's quite rare. Human rebirth is quite rare compared to hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, And then there's asuras and suras who have a lot of pleasure, but they're not so intelligent as humans, and they just enjoy, and they burn up all their positive karma, and then they plunge again. That's the Buddhist cosmology. So again, you know, some people say, can we take it to this earth because there is hell on earth, or people behave like animals, or are hungry ghosts when they are addicted? In a way, yes, you can, but if you are addicted in a human body, you can be liberated from that addiction and that always lack, always need. That's a hungry ghost. If you're born as a hungry ghost, you have to die. You have to leave that existence to be free from that addiction or the pain or whatever. Is that kind of clear? So being human is a lot of positive karma. Like, as I said, the causes for being born as human, ethical conduct, and having practiced generosity and patience, and having made the right aspirations for a precious human rebirth, because not every human rebirth is precious. Many human beings use their intelligence to create a lot of negative karma for themselves and a lot of suffering for others. So it's not that you have a human body, it's precious, because they talk about precious human rebirth. It's when you use it for something useful and to go more towards enlightenment. Okay. Is it possible to have clarity of death while so many people in Western society are drugged at death? Well, even if you're not drugged, I think if you haven't practiced, if you are not realized, if you're not able to go through these stages and really stay in the clear light, which I am not. I mean, I do this quite often, but I am not. It's a bit of, for me, I think it's a bit of an illusion to kind of, you know, die with a clear mind. So again, you ask the lamas, they say you have to look at each individual case, whether it should be sedated or not, because if there's a lot of pain, just screaming, and the mind is in a terrible state, it is better to, if possible, to do something for the pain in the body, then at least the mind can calm down. So, yeah. So don't feel bad when the doctors, you know, sedate your loved ones or whatever, unless they clearly stated, I don't want to be sedated. I want to be sedated if I start screaming. If I start screaming, I'm not screaming yet.
I think it's quite a big question, which I see people facing a lot. People who want to pass away conscious, and sometimes we already mentioned in this weekend, you know, we can fall into the trap of building a fantasy of how our departure is going to be like. And I can probably assure you now, it's not going to be like you think. So please be open, like, you know, I just said, we're ready for all options. And I've seen quite a few people, you know, trying to not to use sedation, not to use the heavy painkillers, and then really going through such a terrible pain that was, I don't know what kind of mind state they were able to keep, but also I know their family and loving ones were really in agony, in suffering, seeing them suffering so much, which, you know, just for me, this would be maybe good enough, if it comes to that, good enough reason. But also I have to say, I have a few friends who are doctors, and I said, can I get some of this, can I practice with it? Can you give me a dose of anesthetic, you know, so I can see what kind of they didn't. But somehow with the practice, I have the confidence that even if you give me, you know, and I'm not, you know, really present in the usual, my mind will be fine. It will not go into very negative. There's no reason for it to go there. You know, I cannot promise that. I don't know that. But when I relax into that, it gives more chance, very more chance that this will happen. If just getting the sedation already stress you, then probably that's what will happen. So yeah, you know, it's fine. Even when I'm not completely conscious, even when I'm kind of drowsy, I cannot maybe remember all the details of the but I'm kind of a very nice, cute person that loves everyone, and that's a good state of mind to live, life. So that's not so bad, maybe. Maybe we can practice also from that direction.
Yeah, and don't forget, the mind goes into a more subtle state, so it's like, the intellect's not working anymore anyway, as you are on the way out. My mother's sister is 95 years old. She's suffering at her home. She wants to die. She asked me to do something. She said that she's completely mindful about that or something. She feels to finish. How can I help her? She still drinks water and is in like, I think, liquid food. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this story of this 95 years old lady, to ask her, why is it that you cannot die if you want to die? I don't know if she can still hear, if she's conscious, this and that. But also for you, maybe, and as we go towards death, this is a very, very cruel thing to ask of somebody, please help me to die, because I had somebody her grandfather did that, grandmother, she said, please close all the machines, and she didn't know what to do. So from my side, again, please don't put that responsibility on a young person's shoulder. And also I just spoke to somebody lately, and they had asked to leave the father and not to do anything in the hospital, and they come to visit him and he's in the emergency room. It's like, if we think we have total control what will happen and what will not happen and this and that, it's going to create more problems. We can prepare, we can write it down and all this, but then if you're sure that somebody will follow these instructions and they don't, you get upset. So better you write something or do, if possible, da 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 da. If not possible, also for me with my body, you can do whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't need to be burned so that the ashes can go into tzatzas, because burning here is, if I die here, it's very complicated, it's very expensive. Somebody said, I'll pay for it. I said, yeah, fine. But it's okay also. I'm confident enough that my ashes don't need to go into tzatzas or stupas or whatever. For the family, and I don't have family, so for the family it's very good if you do that. Because when I was able to do that with the ashes for my parents, it was very helpful for me, because I felt I was doing something that went beyond their death. Tzatzas are, yeah, thank you. Tzatzas are some little Buddha figures made out of clay. And then, it's not just making the image and, you have a mold. It's a whole practice, visualizing the Buddha entering and this, now taking refuge. It's quite nice. I mean, in Lama Zopa Rinpoche's house, whenever they hear about the death, Venerable Annette is making a stupa for that person. So again, it can be done. Also, it was quite interesting because of course my mom died in Switzerland, so I kept some of the ashes. I put it in a padded envelope. I brought it to the post office and send it to India. And then the person in the post office, she kind of went like this, oh, there's something inside. What is it? We need to declare it. So I said, it's the ashes of my dead mom. So she went like, oh. So I said, it's okay, it's ashes. It's not the mind of my mother or the spirit or the soul or whatever. But this is how we react also. And I have to say, I think it was, my mom died, and I was nervous opening that urn. It was screwed and this and that. Then you get used to it, because I'm scattering quite a few ashes. And then also the last ashes of my mom, I was carrying with me, and then I left it everywhere where I thought she would like it. Some of it is in Inbar, by the way. So I thought that she would like it. And the last bit, because there were renovating the stupa in Bodh so the last bit I just threw into the sand there. So I'm happy about it. What it does to her mind, I don't know.
There are no ashes in the statue of the Buddha here. What it brought to my mind is, and I think Anila mentioned it, is more again coming back to our own practice. I would really encourage you to let go of the mind asking your beloved ones to save you from the suffering of the last stages. You know, I hear this a lot. You know, not so much from the dying person, but from the family saying, but we promised her that she will not suffer. We promised him that he will not suffer. How can you promise this? How can you ask anyone to do this? You know what a terrible, I'm sure you know, what a terrible feeling it is when you promise someone that they will not suffer and they are suffering. And what are you supposed to do? To take the pillow and end their suffering? You know, we're not going to do this. As much as we love them, we're not going to do this. So don't ask anyone to promise, and if you can, don't promise. You can promise people to be with them. Whatever they're going to go through, I'll be next to you. You know, I'm not going to send you away somewhere and leave you, but don't promise we're not going to suffer. So when sometimes the last stages are prolonged, you know, my grandmother, she wanted to die for the last 5 years of her life. But always she wanted to die next month because there was always some things she still wanted to do this month. So she would again and again, she would call me because, you know, she knew quite a bit about Buddhism and spirituality. She would call me, she said, you're the only one I can talk to. You know, I had enough of this life, you know, 95 years, I'm going to go. And I said, okay, you know, what shall we do about it? And he said, yeah, not now, you know, it's still the bar mitzvah of this grandchild and when was on this, but in February, you know. So, okay, so let's talk again at the beginning of February. I already reached almost the 100 years. So I was never, you know, and I think nobody in the family would tell her, no, but grandma, why? And your life is so good and why, you know. We respected the fact, we understood it. We understood it's not a whole picture. Many times when people tell you they want to die, what they are telling you that they are suffering. They don't necessarily want to die. They just want to shout, you know, the fact that the most horrible thing that they can think about, I don't want to be here. At that moment that they tell you this, they are connected with their suffering. What they need is to hear this, not to encourage them, not to fight with it, to hear the fact that they're really suffering now. Maybe when we hear this, in 5 minutes from now, we can go together to have nice lunch, you know, and enjoy it. And maybe not. Some people really want to die. And still, if they really want to die, I will not kill them, you know. We're not doing this for our friends, I think, most of us, you know. And also, you know, and still, I think it's quite clear, people, when they are sick, very sick and old, many times express the fact that they had enough by stop eating, you know, and you can respect that, don't fight with it, don't try to find a way. It's probably not 100% right for every situation, but in most situations, you know, if somebody stops eating, it means something. You don't have to push it, you don't have to hurry it, it might take still a long time, very long time sometimes. But don't find a way to overcome, push the, you know, the Filipinos, the woman who was with my other grandmother, you know, she would feed her, you know, it was horrible. She didn't want to eat, she didn't want to stay. She stayed, at least the other grandmother, you know, she reached 100, even 101. She probably was forced to stay here quite a few years after she had no interest in this life, yes, because we were feeding her. So from the other side, don't do that at least.
Then if everything is a projection of our mind, what is real? Did you see the full moon last night? I tell you one thing, it's always full. But we project that it decreases and it increases. So this is a good example also. We are so sure, you know, it's called full moon. Full moon is always full. So that's another kind of illusion that sometimes it's half moon and this, but we firmly believe it because the mind sees it like that. So I think we already talked about this a little bit, that whatever is conventional and our mind projects, adds things to it like inherent existence, that is not there. But there is, conventionally, there is suffering. Conventionally, there is happiness also. But ultimately, it's all relative, this whole thing. And so even, the Buddha says, samsara and nirvana is the same thing. You understand it, you're a Buddha. You don't understand it, you are a being wandering in samsara. But we can't just intellectually again go and say, okay, then everything is the same thing. For us it is not, because it doesn't appear as the same thing. So we have to act according to what appears to us, and slowly, seeing the illusion or the projection. I think that we project is quite clear, and according to the projections we react emotionally. Like I react to the situation here in Israel totally different than you do. I come here to help, that's all. I'm not kind of depressed and feel it's terrible. For me it's quite okay, because I'm trying to do something. What I can do, which is reciting prayers and doing dedications, this is what I can do. So, but if I would be Israeli, I would look at this totally different. Do you think I'm heartless now? But just to say, just to see it, we're so conditioned and we react to that. Yeah. When I see our government doing stupid things, I also start to get upset. Because we identify with what we have learned. So, but I can be many different beings at the same time. Well, maybe I better take one of you or take Boaz. Boaz can be a son, he can be a father, he can be a partner. So who is he? You can't say all of them, because the father and the son is not the same thing. But what do you identify with?
Swiss person.
Yeah, I. Ego.
I'll read another one. Say about emptiness something? I have nothing to say about emptiness. The line between non-attachment, to whom has already passed away, is not here, and the fact that he still remains in our hearts and remains present in a way, that's it's not a question, but it's a good remark. And I think in Shutapim Lamasa, we have two departments. One that is accompanying people till the end, and the one that takes the family from there and move on. It's usually not the same people, but we have one part that deals with being with the sick people, and another part that usually works in groups for grief. And it's really, for me, it wasn't, I have to admit, it was not in my vision of Shutapim Lamasa. It's the work of Tali Hellman that some of you know, that brought the other part. But it really puts a complete picture together, because each one is affecting the other one, When we have a good tradition, and most of us modern people, and sorry for the inclusion, maybe it's not right for you, but most of us in the modern societies, modern culture, we don't have. But if we have a good tradition of grieving, of remembering, of giving place to people who passed away sometime a long time ago, are still in our life, mentioning them in a good way, not in a drag. We have to talk about Grandpa today, what shall we do? And then we buy a lot of food, we sit together and we talk about politics, and there's maybe his photo somewhere. And one of the grandchildren said, but we were here to talk about Grandpa, So, no, if we have a good tradition of remembering, if we can remember the people, my son just got married a few months ago, And under the chuppah, my son is like a really tough young Israeli guy, coming straight from Gaza to the wedding, straight from Gaza, almost no time to change clothes. And when under the chuppah, he was mentioning my father. He didn't have to, nobody was expecting. He was speaking from my heart, from his heart, And then his wife, to be at the moment, but it's 2 seconds later, his wife, also thought about one of her, I don't remember, it was grandmother or grandfather, and mentioned them. And they were with us at that time. And later on, they stopped his friends who came from Gaza in the bus, stopped to mention their friends that didn't make it, that didn't survive the war, and they were all part of us. We were dancing with them, and they were part. So there's a place for the dead people. And when we have a good tradition of this, it's easier to live. One of the things that are difficult I think, for many of us now in the modern life, that we know from our experience how quickly people are forgotten. We know, and then we know that we will be like this. And it's okay. It's okay to practice to be okay with being forgotten. That's one part of the practice. But the other part of the practice, it's really nice to know that you will be in the heart of your loved ones. So when you have a good tradition of remembering, it's easier to live. And when you live in an open and honest and loving way, it's easier to remember. So each part affects the other part, and they make a complete, between them. So I really think this course, talking about dying, there is another part of it, which is what we do after death, after the 49 days, not just the first 49 days. How does it look a year after, 3 years after, 5 years after, 20 years after, And there's a fine line between holding on and grasping, not releasing someone, and meeting after 5 years or 20 years and still feeling like we cannot go back to life without him, and just celebrating the part of this person in you and in our life, My father is here. He's here. I mean, it's not just that I meet him in the mirror every morning. That's why I stopped shaving. But also, there's no me without my father. So I can just acknowledge that. I can be grateful for the part that I'm grateful for. I can carry him and his father, my grandfather, and and his father, which of course I didn't meet, but he's still also part of me. So this talk about Jenkinson talks a lot about ancestors, and ancestors in traditional societies, ancestors were part of life. You knew them generations back. You respected that, and that makes death different, and maybe in many ways easier, because you remain there. Something remains there, not in the sense of I'm here, and not in the sense that I'll be back as a child, in 49 days, or in 9 months, but in the sense that there's something being carried on, and I can let go. I've done my job. It will do its work here, maybe for some time. And having said that, you can also practice being okay with being completely forgotten. That's also fine, but that's complementary.
Yeah, so I can only say, like when my dad died, because I was very attached to him. He was my hero, although we fought a lot. My mom, as I said, she was never present. Even when she was present with her mind, she was not there somehow. She had children because, one has children if one is married. So when my dad died, it was terrible. Even though I knew he would die, I was in Switzerland maybe, and then came back to India. And at one point also he had water in his lungs, and he said, "I really want to die." And I said, "Yes, okay." because there was suffering. He couldn't lie down anymore. And he said, but I really mean it. And I said, yes, me too. And we had a very good conversation. And so I left back to India. I kind of knew that I thought I knew I wouldn't see him alive again. And then at that time, there was faxes. So I was walking down with our travel agent. We coming from the temple, and he knows me. And so he kind of said, look, there's a fax for you. And I read it, and your father has just died. I burst out. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even tell Jean-Luc, who was with me, that my father had to show him the fax. I was so... And so Jean-Luc said, you go back to Tushita, you go home, I go down to the temple and make offerings, and this is what one does. So I went back up. And people are not used to me crying at all. So they didn't understand what was happening. They wanted to console me, and George came and said, "Oh, he was old, and it's like everything is impermanent." I could have punched him. I got so angry. I didn't know that. And then after 3 days, I think I thought I've had enough of these people wanting to take that pain away from me, and I went into retreat. And I did Vajrayogini retreat, which some of you might know, where you do these absorptions again and again and again. I put him next to me and I explained to him what was going to happen. And I didn't talk, I didn't come out of the room. And I did this, and it was still, painful, and I would cry. And I allowed the pain to come, because if you do Vipassana meditation, you learn for things that come and go, and to just allow them to be there. And I think that was the best healing process. One thing, I still had him with me, and I explained what was happening. The other thing, I allowed the pain. And then one night I had a really beautiful dream, and I woke up in the morning and the pain was gone. Now, not everybody is as fortunate as me to just say, okay, I'm going to lock myself off and work with this, but this is what can happen. Then my mom died, and I went back to Switzerland also, and all this, and I felt really strange. I thought, why am I feeling so strange? And then a friend of mine was with me, said, me, I'm always saying what's going on. So I said, I don't know what's happening. I'm not sad or this and that, because also there was no attachment. It was impossible to be attached to somebody who was never there. And so she said, hey, let's do a tarot and we'll see. And the card guilt came up. So you see, even Buddhists take refuge in that sometimes. The card, and I thought, what do you mean guilt? I don't feel guilty. And then I felt guilty of not feeling bad because my mom had died. Because that's the usual thing you do. You have to feel guilty, otherwise you didn't laugh. So that was interesting. And then I started to work with this. It's okay. She wanted to die. I mean, she said, I'm going. 4 days after, she was gone. Because she would have needed one of these colostomy operations. She said, no, thank you very much. And she developed pneumonia. And the doctor said, we don't know what's happening. She's dying under our hands. And 4 days later, she was dead. Sister-in-law came. I was on the way from India. My sister-in-law came. She said, what are you doing here? I didn't call you. And I'm a bit the same as her. I can see my mother in me also, kind of, don't need help, get lost. And so they said, okay, we're coming back tomorrow. And I would have said, look, I'm here because the doctor told me that you're dying. That's what I would have said. But I didn't have the courage. So they said, okay, we come back tomorrow. And she said, no, no need. And she died that night, very peacefully. She always decided what she wanted to do, and she did it. And she had kind of a happy life. So like that. So, again, this whole thing, non-attachment, it doesn't mean letting the person go, you don't remember them. At the beginning when my dad died, I wasn't even to say the word father. Because we in order to create some merit for his rebirth, I did a nune, and with some people joined me, and then at the end is like this praise, this request to Avalokiteshvara, please let my mother and father, and I saw the word father, and I started sobbing, like, with many people present, and I just pulled the Zen over my head, and Jean-Luc took over, and he continued to lead, and that was okay. But then it's really that pain has never come back. Just gratitude for having had such a good dad. So, but it cannot be forced. This is it. I was applying the methods that I had learned, doing something for him on his way to, so that he has a good rebirth, and dealing with my pain by just allowing it to be there. But without the tools, I don't think I would have been able to do that alone in my room, without talking, without seeing anybody. So I'm not recommending that to somebody who is not used to do solitary retreats. It will kill you. It will not kill you, no, but it will still kill you. It will feel as if somebody is killing you, because it's so painful. It is so painful.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to finish because I need 5 minutes.
This one is just, this is for you anyway. It's about, I provide spiritual support to the ill and dying, oncology, neurology, and hematology maybe. Would you kindly, I would kindly appreciate, oh, that's very polite, it's very nice. I would kindly appreciate guidance, resources for supporting during death and support after death. So I think whoever the person is, like I think I gave you from the Buddhist side what I can offer. From the secular side, I don't really know. So this question goes to Boaz.
I'll take, we will stop in 2 minutes. I want to refer a minute for the previous question, and I'll just say that whatever we have now, we have on the website of Shutafim and Lemasa. It's not much. We're really working on putting more, and we're also working on putting a whole new website specifically for supporting people during sickness and illness, but it will take time, and we're very happy if people want to join that project. I'll just want to say one more word about the previous issue. I spent in the last year some time every week with a group of bereaved parents, Horim Shakulim, from the war, from the festival, from Nova. We had an amazing journey together. It's still going in a different way now. And what most of these parents are busy with is what we call in Hebrew Hansacha. How do you say that in English? No, memorial and Hansacha is not the same, yeah. We have this word in Hebrew, Hansacha, comes from the word Netzach, which is eternity. So it's memorial, but the word means how can I keep this person forever, you know? And for me as a Buddhist, you know, the word Hansacha is like, oh, no, nothing stays forever. But for a whole year, I didn't and I wouldn't, I will never say a word about it, you know. I let them grieve in their way. If they would have come to me and said, what do you think about Hansacha? You know, maybe I would share some thoughts. They never came. I can understand. I mean, their kids left for a party in the morning, and we all know how it ended. And I would let them grieve and do whatever they want to do. It's books and photos and projects, and I have this amazing frisbee in my car with the photo of Omri, which just looking, it makes me cry again, and all these things. And I can see that while they are doing so much to freeze the situation, keep it like it was a year ago, it doesn't, also for them. And they move on slowly and painfully, and I don't have to shake them out of it. It's going, just to have the fact that there is a community, you know, around them and us listening. And so, I don't know, it was important to me to say that as well. We'll stop now. Now we have just 3-4 minutes before we go for lunch. So I want to say 2 things. First, we'll go to lunch in 2 shifts. So this time it will be the people who are living in the main building will go first at 12:30. And the people who live here will wait 10 minutes and then go. Please, the second group, don't lose time, because have you seen the sisters are standing with the you know, spoon in their hand waiting for you to come. So if you take the time to, and come after half an hour, their hand might dry. So don't test them. Some of them are almost 100 years old. There's one sister here who's 102 or 3, Jeanette, I don't remember. So she's not serving the food, but still. But I wanted to say just a few words about Dana. And I'm doing it here just because for practical reasons, we need to do part of the Dana at the lunch break, which will be until 2 o'clock. Yeah. Just because we have to go and take the cash money and go to the office to pay it. So I'm just saying it very briefly. And okay, so this course, like was offered to you. The way I like to think about it, that it was offered to you by the people who've done the previous course. They paid for it. You're paid. You don't owe us anything. You can go home and be happy. Really. I really hope that you feel like this. If by any chance you feel that this course was beneficial and you would like other people to enjoy the next course that will be in Shutafim Lamasa or in Dharma Friends, the specific Dana will go to Shutafim Lamasa, but the whole visit of Anila is in Dharma Friends, and I would like to think of us as brothers, sisters, if you like other people to enjoy the next course, you can leave something that will help these organizations to do the next course. And then the people who will come next time, which maybe not going to be you, maybe you're not even going to know anyone there, might enjoy a course that was given to them by the people who've been here in the previous course. So it has nothing to do with paying for the room. Your room is paid, your food is paid, the visit is paid, everything is paid. We are not expecting anything, so it's not payment. But if you feel generous for the next people that will come, if you want some of this to go on, if you want to allow us to keep giving, sharing the path, then you're welcome, most welcome to practice generosity. We are generous enough to allow you the opportunity to practice your generosity, but please, only if you feel generous. Don't feel obliged. Don't put anything out of the feeling of, I have to pay for this. You don't. It's paid for. We have enough. It's covered. Feel generous? You're welcome to live. So how to do this? If you have cash money with you, we'll be happy if you do it during this break. We'll put 2 boxes here or at the other room, and you can just put your cash money there. If you need a personal receipt for it, a Kabbalah, add to your money. You don't have to attach it. Just put a note saying, I left, 50 shekels. I would like a receipt on this name to this email, so we can put a personal receipt for you. Okay? If you don't have cash, it's okay. We also accept gold. We accept earrings. And we can also accept bit or pay box. And this you don't have to do now. I was supposed to give you your phone to do this before you forget. We're not going to do this. I don't care. If you forget, you should forget. If you go home and remember, you do it from home happily, or you can do it here when you get your phone and after you open it and you see the 567 WhatsApp messages. If you still remember the course after that, this will be a good sign that maybe you can leave something. So anyone who wants to do it digitally, you will get all the details in the WhatsApp, in the email. There are some barcodes here you can scan, but this will be after we finished, So I'm not worried. I hope you are not worried about it. And really just be happy to be part of this. You call it generosity, economy of the heart. I think it's Nachi alone. I'm not sure who said that, but I accept it. Let's really respect the Dana tradition, which we didn't invent. We're just joining it, which is so joyful that we can offer you this weekend. People who've been here before, people who've been Dharma friends and Shutafim, offer you everything that you've done. And now you can just check if you want to offer the rest of the people. The money goes to, to cover the next course, rooms and food, and some Dana to the teachers, and some Dana to keep the organization, whether Dharma Friends or Shtafim Lamasa going on. This is what we do. So thank you. The boxes will come here. If you are the first group, the people living in the main building, first go there, and when you come back, put the money. If you have the 10 minutes now, you can do it now, okay? Bon appetit. We keep the silence just for a little bit longer, and by 2 o'clock we'll start talking. 2 o'clock. Yeah, 2 o'clock here. Somebody's doing gong afternoon? Yeah? So 7 minutes to 10 minutes to 2, start at the other building. Okay, ואז לבוא לכאן.